The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft amber glow across the quiet neighborhood. Children's laughter echoed faintly from a few houses down, and sprinklers hummed in steady rhythm as they soaked well-trimmed lawns. Maya stood at the edge of the driveway, one hand resting gently on her round belly, the other clutching a small grocery bag. She had just returned from the corner store, craving the sour candy she always loved when the baby kicked hardest. She smiled weakly, ignoring the tension in her chest. The silence in her home had been heavier than usual lately. Jordan had barely spoken to her in days. She turned as she heard the familiar rumble of their pickup truck. It was parked a few feet away, engine idling low. Something about the way it roared to life sent a chill down her spine. Maya froze. Jordan was behind the wheel, gripping it tightly with both hands. His face, once familiar and soft with affection, now looked like stone, hard, angry, unrecognizable. Their eyes locked for a brief, terrifying moment. Her lips parted to speak, to plead, but no words came out. Suddenly, the truck's engine roared louder. Tires screeched on the pavement. Jordan didn't stop. Maya's scream ripped through the still air as she tried to leap aside, but it was too late. The metallic thunder of the impact swallowed her whole. Pain shot through her body like fire, and then, nothing. Just the overwhelming sound of her own heartbeat, then silence, then darkness. 2 years earlier, no one could have convinced Maya that the man she loved would ever hurt her. Jordan was charming, magnetic even, the kind of man who made others gravitate toward him at parties. When they met at a bookstore cafe, his easy smile and disarming humor melted her defenses in record time. He talked about dreams, starting his own business, traveling the world, building a life of freedom and love. Maya, a schoolteacher with a quiet spirit and a heart full of longing, was swept away. Their relationship moved quickly. Within months, Maya distanced herself from her cautious parents who thought things were happening too fast. "He's not who he seems," her sister had whispered. But Maya was convinced she knew him better than anyone. She moved in with Jordan, left her circle of friends behind, and threw herself into supporting his ambitions. He had big ideas but struggled to hold down a job. She took on extra shifts, quietly picking up the pieces. In public, they looked like the perfect couple, laughing at brunches, posting selfies on weekend hikes. But behind closed doors, Jordan's flaws began to surface. He didn't like her texting anyone from her past. He made cutting jokes that left invisible bruises. If she questioned him, even gently, his voice would sharpen, and he'd leave for hours without saying where he was going. The pregnancy wasn't planned. Maya had stared at the stick in disbelief, a flicker of fear in her chest. But then she smiled. Maybe this child would bring change. Maybe it would ground Jordan, give him the sense of responsibility he needed. She imagined a little girl with Jordan's eyes but her temperament, quiet and warm. She hoped. Jordan did not. The moment she told him, his face darkened. "You did this on purpose," he snapped, accusing her of trapping him. From that day, the tension sharpened like a blade. He stopped pretending to be the man she once knew. The insults came faster, the silences longer. Maya kept trying, reading articles on saving relationships, praying at night, writing in a secret journal she hid under the crib. But the more she hoped, the more Jordan pulled away. The love story she clung to began to rot from the inside out. Yet she stayed, holding on to the lie she once believed was perfect. Blinding lights. Voices. Screams, not hers, but around her. Maya gasped for breath as the sound of rushing wheels and beeping machines crashed into her ears. Her eyelids fluttered open, but the world around her was a blur of white and red. A woman in scrubs leaned over her, shouting something Maya couldn't understand. Her entire body trembled. Pain radiated from her lower half like a wildfire, sharp and consuming. She tried to move her legs. Nothing. "She's conscious, BP's dropping, let's move," a man barked. They rushed her down sterile hallways. The cold of the oxygen mask, the burn of IVs, the frantic urgency in every movement, it was too much. Maya drifted again. When she awoke, it was quieter. Dim lights hummed overhead. Her lips were dry, her throat raw. A nurse noticed and brought her water. Maya's voice cracked as she whispered, "My baby." "She's okay," the nurse said gently. "A little early, but healthy. She's in the NICU for observation." Relief surged through Maya, followed by an avalanche of dread. The pain returned like a hammer. She looked down and saw her legs, wrapped in heavy casts, pinned and elevated. Metal rods jutted from her thighs like cruel exclamation marks. A doctor came in soon after. He looked grim but composed. "Maya, the impact caused severe compound fractures to both your legs. The surgery saved them, but the damage was extensive. With time and therapy, we'll do everything we can. But you may never regain full mobility. You might not walk again." Tears slid silently down Maya's cheeks. The weight of the words suffocated her. Later, a police officer came by, asking questions in a rehearsed, somber tone. "Do you remember what happened?" "Yes," Maya rasped. "My husband, Jordan. He ran me over." They nodded, took notes. "Do you know where he might have gone?" She didn't. He had vanished. Neighbors were interviewed, but no one claimed to have seen anything clearly. Just a truck. A scream. Some even claimed they were inside, unaware. As hours turned into days, it became evident, no one was coming forward. No one was fighting for her. Jordan had disappeared, and the world was silent. Maya was left shattered, broken not just in body, but in spirit. The transfer from the hospital to the rehabilitation center felt like a descent into a deeper kind of pain. Maya was wheeled out in silence, the cold metal of the stretcher biting into her back. Her legs, still stiff, swollen, and encased in external fixators, throbbed with every jolt. The rehab center smelled like disinfectant and distant sorrow. The walls were beige, the rooms small, the staff kind but rushed. It wasn't home. It wasn't anything close. Alone in her new room, Maya stared at the ceiling tiles, each one a reminder of how her life had fractured. The bruises had begun to fade from her face, but the damage inside her ran deep. No visitors. No friends. No family. She had pushed them all away for Jordan, and now she was here, discarded and forgotten. Lily was brought to her in a tiny bassinet once a day. The nurses handled her gently, reminding Maya to hold her upright, to feed her slowly, to keep her warm. Her daughter was so small, so delicate, tiny fingers, faint lashes, a constant whimpering breath. Maya loved her fiercely. But each time she looked into her eyes, she also saw fear. Fear that she couldn't give this child what she needed. The medical bills arrived in thick envelopes, unopened and multiplying. There was no insurance. Jordan had cancelled their plan months ago. The debt was insurmountable. Maya had nothing, no income, no mobility, no one to lean on. And Lily needed more than love. She needed food, diapers, medicine, stability. One night, after feeding Lily and watching her drift to sleep in the crib beside her bed, Maya broke down. Tears poured silently down her cheeks as she stared at the ceiling. The weight of helplessness bore down on her chest like a stone. She gripped the blanket, teeth clenched, and whispered through sobs, "Why me?" The room offered no answer. The walls didn't care. Her voice vanished into the night, unheard. She found herself considering the unthinkable, calling an agency, asking about adoption. Maybe Lily deserved more than a mother who couldn't stand, who had nothing to offer but scars and sorrow. That thought alone shattered Maya even more. It was rock bottom, darker than anything she'd ever known. It was late afternoon when Maya finally convinced the nurse to wheel her outside into the hospital's tiny garden courtyard. The sunlight didn't feel warm, it felt like a lie. She sat beneath a flowering tree, her lap draped in a hospital blanket, arms folded across her chest, eyes swollen from another night of silent crying. The world went on around her, birds chirped, flowers bloomed, but none of it reached her. She didn't belong in this world anymore. Not like this. Not broken. A quiet shuffle of footsteps broke the stillness. She didn't look up until a voice spoke gently beside her. "You don't have to say anything. I just wanted to sit here." She turned her head. A man, mid-30s, dressed simply in jeans and a gray sweater, stood with his hands in his pockets. He had kind eyes, tired, but open. He sat on the bench across from her without waiting for permission. They didn't speak that day, or the next. But he returned each afternoon, always around the same time, carrying a small book or sometimes just a coffee for himself. On the third day, he introduced himself. "I'm Daniel. I volunteer here." She nodded, barely whispering her name. That was enough. As the days passed, Daniel began to bring stories, books he read aloud when she couldn't sleep, poetry that made her chest ache in ways she didn't expect. He asked her about Lily. One day, he met her daughter and didn't look at her with pity or hesitation. He picked her up with a natural gentleness and spoke to her in a soft, silly voice that made the baby coo for the first time. Maya began to wait for his visits. Not because she needed saving, but because he made her feel less invisible. He never asked about her accident. He never tried to fix her. He was just there. One afternoon, she laughed, a real, fragile laugh, at a joke he made about baby socks going missing. It surprised her. She hadn't heard herself laugh in weeks. Daniel never mentioned money, never hinted at his status. But the nurses whispered, and Maya pieced it together. He wasn't just kind, he was someone important. But he wore his wealth like a secret, irrelevant to his presence with her. And somehow, for the first time since the world shattered, Maya began to feel like a person again. Not broken. Not discarded. Just human. It was raining softly the day Daniel sat beside Maya with a quiet resolve in his eyes. The courtyard was empty except for the two of them and the faint scent of wet earth. He placed a manila folder on her lap. Papers, referrals, something official. "I want to help you, Maya," he said, voice low and careful. "There's a facility just outside the city. They specialize in trauma rehab, state-of-the-art therapy, the best doctors, real results. I can get you in." Maya stared at the folder, her hands shaking slightly. "I can't afford." "I'll take care of it," Daniel interrupted gently. "But there's one condition." Her heart sank. This was it. The price, the catch. She looked up warily, ready for disappointment. "You have to fight for yourself," he said. "No more giving up. You have to believe you're worth saving." The words stunned her. Not pity. Not charity. A challenge. The next week, she was moved into the new facility, a modern, bright space with floor-to-ceiling windows and warm, welcoming staff. Every morning began with therapy. The machines were intimidating. The exercises were painful. Some days, she cried in the shower where no one could hear. Her muscles screamed in protest, and her body felt foreign, broken beyond repair. But every day, Daniel was there. He never pushed, never hovered, just sat nearby during her sessions, quietly cheering her smallest victories. When she collapsed in exhaustion, he helped her laugh through the tears. When she screamed in frustration, he simply waited until the storm passed. Progress was slow. A twitch. A lift. Then one day, she stood, with crutches, trembling and uncertain, but upright. The room filled with quiet applause, but it was Daniel's steady, teary-eyed gaze that held her upright. He didn't see a patient. He saw a warrior. For the first time in months, Maya looked at her reflection in the therapy room mirror and didn't see just scars or pain. She saw possibility. Her body still hurt, her future still unsure, but she was no longer drowning. She was rising. And deep down, she knew, this wasn't just about walking. It was about reclaiming herself. And Daniel's belief in her was the first brick in the foundation of a life she thought she had lost forever. Late one night, long after the nurses had done their rounds and Lily was asleep in her crib beside her, Maya lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her legs ached from therapy, her arms sore from supporting her body with crutches. But her mind was restless, drifting again to Daniel. His kindness, his consistency, his gentle silence. Who was he, Really? With one hand, she reached for the tablet the hospital had loaned her. For weeks, she had resisted looking him up. She didn't want to know anything that might shatter the comfort he brought. But curiosity finally won. She typed his full name into the search bar, Daniel Avery Grayson. Instantly, headlines flooded the screen. Grayson tech founder loses family in tragic drunk driving crash. Silicon Valley mogul vanishes from public eye after personal tragedy. From CEO to philanthropist, Daniel Grayson's quiet new mission. Maya scrolled through the articles with trembling hands. Years ago, Daniel had been at the height of his success, a brilliant entrepreneur with a booming company and a picture-perfect family. Then, one rainy evening, a drunk driver had blown through a red light. His wife, Emily, and their infant daughter had been killed instantly. Daniel hadn't spoken to the media since. He'd walked away from everything. She set the tablet down and wept, for him, for herself, for the brokenness they both carried. The next day, she waited until he arrived. He walked in with a coffee in one hand and a baby book for Lily in the other. Maya looked at him quietly and said, "I know about Emily. And your daughter." Daniel froze, his smile fading, eyes shadowed by memories. But he didn't run. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I can't imagine that kind of loss." He sat down slowly. "I didn't help you because I felt sorry for you, Maya. I helped you because I recognized the look in your eyes. The same one I saw in the mirror every day after I lost them." They sat in silence for a moment, not needing to fill the space. Then he added, "You're the first person I've felt something real with in a long time." It wasn't romantic. Not yet. It was deeper. A shared scar. A mutual understanding that healing never comes all at once, but piece by piece, in the company of someone who truly sees you. The seasons changed as Maya's body slowly reclaimed itself. What had once seemed impossible, standing, stepping, balancing, was now part of her daily routine. With each passing month, her confidence grew stronger than her muscles. She no longer needed full-time assistance, the wheelchair was gone. Now she walked the rehab center halls with a simple cane, one she picked out herself, polished wood with a curved handle, both elegant and defiant. Every step was a quiet rebellion against the man who tried to take everything from her. Lily grew alongside her. The baby who once fit in the crook of Maya's arm was now crawling at lightning speed, pulling herself up on furniture, babbling with a toothy grin. One morning, Maya was reading on the couch when Lily stood on chubby legs and stumbled forward, 3 wobbly steps before landing in her mother's arms. Tears spilled freely down Maya's cheeks. It wasn't just Lily's first steps, it was their shared victory. 2 girls who had nearly been destroyed, now moving forward, together. Inspired by her own journey, Maya began to speak to other women at the facility, those recovering from abuse, trauma, abandonment. Her story, once a source of shame, had become a lifeline. She listened with patience, encouraged with gentleness, and reminded them, again and again, that broken does not mean worthless. Then one morning, a call came from the police. Jordan had been arrested across state lines, caught after a violent assault on another woman. The details were chillingly familiar. The authorities wanted Maya's statement. Her testimony could strengthen the case. She didn't hesitate. Sitting in a courtroom weeks later, facing the man who had once convinced her that she was nothing, Maya didn't shake. Her voice didn't crack. She looked him in the eyes and told the truth, clearly, calmly, completely. Jordan barely met her gaze. When it was over, Maya stepped outside into the sunlight, her cane clicking confidently on the concrete. She didn't cry. She didn't collapse. She had survived him. More than that, she had outgrown him. And now, she was walking not just toward healing, but toward something even more powerful. Hope. The ribbon fluttered in the wind as Maya stood before the small brick building, scissors in hand, her daughter clinging to her leg. The sign above read, "The Haven, a place to rise." It was more than just a building, it was the beginning of something she'd once thought impossible. A women's recovery center, created for survivors like her. A space for healing, safety, and second chances. With Daniel's quiet but unwavering support, the center had come to life. He never demanded the spotlight. Instead, he helped her find architects, counselors, donors, and the right team, empowering her to lead, to build, to be the voice. And she had stepped into that role like she was born for it. Inside the center's soft-colored walls, Maya was more than a survivor. She was a mentor, a mother, a woman who had transformed her pain into purpose. She greeted every woman who walked through the doors with a hug and the simple words, "You're safe now." One evening, after the last group meeting had ended and Lily had fallen asleep in the nursery, Daniel found Maya on the front steps, staring up at the stars. He sat beside her quietly, their shoulders brushing. "I never helped you because I thought you needed saving," he said softly. "I just didn't want you to walk through life alone." She turned to him, tears glistening, but they weren't from pain. They were from peace. For the first time in a long, long while, Maya smiled. A full, genuine smile, one not shadowed by fear or grief. She reached for his hand, lacing her fingers with his. "I'm not broken anymore," she whispered. And in that still moment beneath the stars, she knew, this was the life she never imagined, but the one she had fought to deserve. The ballroom shimmered with gold and candlelight, filled with supporters, survivors, and community leaders gathered for the Haven's first annual fundraiser gala. Music played softly beneath the hum of conversation and clinking glasses. At the front of the room, a sleek stage stood waiting, its spotlight glowing with anticipation. Then, the crowd hushed as the announcer stepped forward. "Please welcome the founder and heart of the Haven, Maya Grayson." A wave of applause erupted as Maya appeared at the edge of the stage, tall, poised, and radiant. She wore a deep emerald gown that brushed the floor and, for the first time in public, she stood not with a cane, but in heels. Slowly, purposefully, she walked to the microphone, each step a quiet triumph over the past. She paused, took a breath, and looked out into the sea of faces. "I used to think my story ended the night I was left for dead in my own driveway," she began. "That I'd always be the girl who was crushed, by metal, by betrayal, by silence." The room listened in rapt attention. "But tonight, I stand here not as someone broken, but as someone rebuilt. I was left broken by someone who promised to love me. But a stranger's kindness reminded me that even shattered pieces can be made whole again." There was a beat of silence. Then the applause began, quiet at first, then swelling into a standing ovation. Near the front, Daniel stood holding Lily, her tiny arms wrapped around his neck. He clapped the loudest, his eyes full of tears and pride. Maya smiled at them, her family, her future. From crushed to complete. She had made it.